Breaking news, Justin Anderson is signed with the Nets. Again. Before I really get into this video, I want to talk about something really quick. That's the Bleacher Report's top 10 players. I think everyone can agree that it's bad. It's not good. Chris Middleton is not the 10th best player in the NBA. And Jason Tatum is not the 11th best player in the NBA. And Russell Westbrook is definitely better than the 22nd best. The reason that they have Westbrook at number 22 apparently is because, according to them, ranking him any higher would require selective memory, and yet they have Jason Tatum at number 11. So yeah, Bleacher Report is a bunch of hypocrites, because Westbrook's second half of the season was a lot better than, or just better than Tatum's second half of the season, and his start was actually a bit better than Tatum's. So yeah, Westbrook's better than Tatum. Anyways, the Brooklyn Nets, what's going on with them, man? They've pretty much lost half of their team to some combination of coronavirus and injuries, and it's just not a good look. They've already replaced like half their team with a bunch of players, because that's all there is, really. And now any chance that this season ever had of really being anything for them is pretty much gone at this point. Pretty much guaranteed to fall to the 8th seed, and the only reason that they wouldn't fall out of the playoffs entirely is because the Wizards were somehow hit even harder with the injury bug than they were. So out of the players that have opted out of the season, there's KD and Kyrie, the two main guys. Both of them have injury problems, and Kyrie had like the whole social issue thing, and I respect him for that. I respect pretty much everyone for that. So yeah, that's just their whole season is gone just by those two sitting out. Spencer Dinwiddie, Taurean Prince, and DeAndre Jordan all tested positive for the virus. I know that Spencer Dinwiddie was symptomatic, so he wouldn't want to play. DeAndre Jordan's older, so I know he wouldn't want to play. Wilson Chandler wanted to spend time with his family. Older guy, end of the contract year, probably wants to keep himself from being injured and just wants to sit with his family. Even Nicholas Claxton had to sit out because of season-ending surgery on his shoulder. So that left them with no center and a whole bunch of missing players. And even the process of replacing these guys was really complicated. They had to waive Theo Pinson in order to sign Tyler Johnson. They signed Timothy Luwawu-Cabbarot and Justin Anderson, who just always seemed to find a way to get back together on the same team. Initially, they were going to sign Justin Anderson and Timothy Luwawu-Cabbarot together, but then they didn't. They got cold feet, and they signed Lance Thomas, and then they had also signed Michael Beasley on top of that, but then Michael Beasley tested positive for coronavirus, so they had to sign Justin Anderson again. Of course, he's the new piece. For a while, Justin Anderson was seen as better than Timothy Luwawu-Cabbarot just because of his athletic ability. But Timothy Luwawu-Cabbarot isn't exactly a slouch either in terms of his jumping and running and defense and stuff. He can do all that too. And he's better on offense, apparently, than Anderson. So Anderson might end up playing a lot of power forward. Timmy's going to play a lot of small forward, and that's going to be it. And now they have no backup center, except for Lance Thomas, who I previously mentioned. Originally, it was going to be Michael Beasley at center and maybe Thomas at power forward, but since, Beasley's not going to happen, they had to put Lance Thomas and just slide him down there. So now they have a really small ball bench with Justin Anderson at the 4, Timmy at the 3, whoever at the 1 and 2, but then Lance Thomas at the 5. And through about 40 games for the Nets, Luwawu-Cabbarot was actually pretty decent for them. He averaged like 6-7 points, played good defense, shot well from 3, shot okay from the field, and overall he was just very worthy of being on the team, but they had to cut him in order to make room for Wilson Chandler's return. Apparently Justin Anderson's nickname on Basketball Reference is Simba, so that's worth something, I guess. He was worse at pretty much everything except defense than Luwawu-Cabbarot, I may as well mention the fringe guys, the guys that nobody would really pay attention to: Chris Chioza, Jeremiah Martin, Dante Hall. Just shout out to them. They exist. Let me take a second to talk a little bit about their replacement for Justin Anderson, their initial guy, Lance Thomas. They had shown interest in him early in the season. He was kind of okay for New York, signed a long contract, probably too big, but he is a solid role player, can stretch the floor modestly. He's big, he's a wing, can shoot kind of, play defense. He'll probably end up playing backup center for them, so yeah. But the crowning achievement of the glorious Brooklyn Nets 2020 off-season of coronavirus was the great, the one, the only Jamal Crawford. A 40-year-old man who can't play defense, who probably would never pass the ball, and I should stop giving him crap. He's older, he's very old, so he's probably a lot wiser in terms of his basketball IQ, but he's still gonna probably run a lot of the offense. I mean, he scored 50 points for the Suns in his final game of the last season, so at least he can do that well. And he might be the one guy that the Nets would run their offense through, besides like Caris LeVert. So yeah, pretty much those two are all they have right now, and they're not very good, but at least we'll see some Jamal Crawford crossovers. I mean, look at this move right here. Stop playing. Come on, stop playing. But yeah, the Brooklyn Nets are probably going to end up running a lot of their offense through him, especially if he comes off the bench, because, just who else do they have, really? He's basically built for the bench, so yeah, that's probably what they're going to be doing with him. And in any minutes that he plays with Jarrett Allen, those will be fun. A lot of pick and rolls with him. Yeah, it's going to be entertaining, even if it's not going to be very good. Their small ball stretch the floor lineup off the bench would be very good for him, especially if they have like Rodion Kurucs and Joe Harris in alongside him, and Tyler Johnson, that type of thing. Also, yeah, just pretty much they're going to break some ankles, have some fun, lose a bunch of games, keep the 8th seed, and maybe Caris LeVert drops 50, maybe Jamal Crawford drops like 30 off the bench, and they're gonna get swept by the Bucks. Not really much to say here. Speaking of Joe Harris and Caris LeVert, let's talk about their health. So Joe Harris had a couple injury issues, but he said he feels healthy, so I guess I'm just going to have to trust him on that. Jarrett Allen, a little worrying, said that his conditioning was quote-unquote a work in progress, so he's going to have to work on that, and that's a little bit worrying since he's like the only center, but I think he's just going to come in and do his job, basically. Anyway, Caris LeVert, this is something I want to talk about a little bit more. Of course, we remember the terrible injury that he suffered last season in the midst of a great run that he was putting on. He was averaging like, I think, 20 points a game roughly, and yeah, he was just really good. He was coming up being like one of the big breakout stars, and that's what everyone was looking at him like for a couple years after he showed that he was at least competent as a basketball player. And after he really recuperated, even after injuries plagued him this season, he missed, I guess, like 25 games roughly because of recurring ankle problems. He still looked good. He dropped 50 in a game near the end of the season, dropped 37 before that, so he's not doing too bad himself right now. And all that really matters is just that he needs to stay healthy. And that's this whole thing with the Brooklyn Nets is the players have to stay healthy. If not for this season, then for next season. So yeah, pretty much as long as he doesn't get hurt, he should be fine. As for the rest of the team, many players have said that they're doing well in terms of conditioning. But, everyone's an optimist, and I'm going to choose to also be an optimist and say, yeah, I think they're telling the truth. So yeah, the Brooklyn Nets are supposed to be at least the same quality as this video in this quarantine bubble, except more entertaining, I guess. One last thing I wanted to talk about was the Nets coaching situation. Their current guy, Jacques Vaughn, is alright. He doesn't really interfere too much with the stars, at least I don't think he did. He's not as good as Kenny Atkinson, but he's solid, I guess. He gets the job done. Nothing really special about him, but he won't cut it for this. But there are a whole bunch of guys trying to come up and take his spot. There's former coach Jason Kidd, who wasn't very good. Tyronn Lue, players' favorite. Tom Thibodeau would help with the defensive mentality. Hell, even Mama There Goes That Man Jackson was rumored, and players seem to like him. So right now, Jacques Vaughn is well liked, but he isn't great. Mark Jackson seems like a good favorite. We all know what he did with the Warriors. I mean, he didn't like take them over the top, but he really got that whole train moving. So maybe he could do something similar with the Nets, even though they already have 2 superstars. But you know, good coaching is good coaching. So yeah, the Nets have options. Video done. Bye.